Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hello everybody and Happy New Year. It's January 1st of 2018 and I hope everybody is having a good January 1st or whenever you happen to listen to this. I am currently on vacation, but I've had a lot of episodes prepped and ready to go, and I am happy to have this one ready. It's with Kari McGinnis of Blazing Caribou Studios. She has a number of different podcasts and projects that she's involved in, so I hope you enjoy this episode. It's a little bit outside of the normal episode, as we generally just have a conversation back and forth, and fandom goes in and out of our conversation. That we also talk about real life and our families and everything in between. So it's different, but in a good way. And I hope you get to enjoy it because there's a lot of fun stuff that we do bring up from our conversations. So enjoy, take a listen to this promo from a different podcast before we get started. And I hope you have a great new year.
Do you like sci-fi, AI, and technology? Do you enjoy going on tangents and down random rabbit holes of a subject? Then join me and my friends each week on BrokeBot Mountain as some artificially intelligent people attempt to walk through a maze that explores themes of existence and free thought in sci-fi TV, movies, and books. The conversations are unique and bring an unusual perspective to the genre and can literally go anywhere. And we do mean anywhere. You can find us at blazingcariboustudios.com or look for BrokeBot Mountain on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, or anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts.
And welcome to another episode of Tales from the Fandom, and today I am honored to have Kari McGinnis joining me on the program. Kari is I guess you're the chief caribou of the herd for the Blazing Caribou network, correct?
I am. I am the actual Kari Boo, and that's where it comes from. That was a nickname I had in high school. It was Caribou.
Oh, wow. So here, I didn't even know that.
See, it's all
Shocking.
relative. It all comes around. So yeah, that's where that comes from.
So if you are not familiar with the Blazing Caribou Network, they have a great lineup of multiple different podcasts. Two of my favorites are BrokeBot Mountain, that you are a part of, and then Varmints, that Donna and Donna and Paul do. So those are two of my favorites, but I do get to listen in on a few other ones from time to time. But thank you, Kari, for joining my podcast, Tales from the Fandom.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here, David. As always, it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Yes, we talk sometimes on the great internet tubes.
Yes, we do. The internet tubes, yes.
One of my favorite things is that I love talking, number one, to podcast hosts, because they have something automatically to talk about, which is podcasts. But then generally podcast hosts are into a ton of different like fandoms and cool just things, like interesting things, and you are among those. And one of the things that I want to talk about, one of the people or creations that I wanted to hit on first, is something that you popped up in the questionnaire I sent over to you about a Marvel character, and that is Kamala Khan, or Miss Marvel.
Yeah. She's pretty great. We do a little show. It's a seasonal show, sketching comedy. And this show came out as a brainchild of Phil and I, Phil Rude, who is an awesome artist. And it was pretty funny. He had come on Trivia Geeks a few times, and I kept bugging him. And I'm like, dude, he and I kind of just clicked. And I'm like, we got to do a show together. And he's like, I'm not a podcaster. I got a weird voice. I don't like doing this. I got, how everybody kind of gets into it. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I think you've got, you're a commodity, man. There's something there that could be really good. And, I kind of pressured him for a good 6 months. Right. And we were playing against the idea of how to put a show together that is an educational show, but also a visually educational show, and introduce it's not for everybody. It's a very, very niche show, but it's basically artists for artists. there's so many
Mm-hmm.
times that Phil kind of like fangirls over some of these local artists like Rob Momartz, David Peterson, all these types of things. And what's funny is you don't really know a lot about them. You don't know the art behind the art, and or the person behind the art. And Phil is one of those people. And so we got Phil on board, and then we got Imran Javed on board, who's also the host of Trivia Geeks, who is a phenomenal artist, and he's a digital artist. And what we do is we kind of have fun. I'm pretty much the straight guy. I put down the information. I research a project, a cartoon, or an artist, or even a comic. It could be like somebody like Seinfeld or something like that. It all kind of is relative, and we get to learn a little bit more about that. And while we're doing that, the guys are on the drawing boards drawing something relative to the show. So, sometimes they do it in the style of the cartoon that we're discussing, or the art that we're discussing, or the person that we're discussing, or sometimes they're just being silly and just like throwing something out there. But it's a really really good show. It's not for everybody, and I'm okay with that, because it's not for everybody. It's one of those shows that you got to have a little bit of love for art, which is what Phil's side is, and you have to have a love for comedians, which is my side. And we do the comedians once a month, and we do all the art on the other hands of those. So it could be anything. So we get a lot of people that kind of send us topics and stuff. They're like, oh my God, could you do something on Seinfeld, or could you do it on Kamala Khan? And I'm like, cool. Who's Kamala Khan? And it's really funny, because the best part about this is I am totally green to all of this, except the comedian part, because just quick FYI, I was a stand-up comedian for a few years back in the day. And so, I love comedy, and that's where sketching comedy, where the comedy part of the sketching comedy comes from. But I'm totally green to illustrators, comic books, all that kind of stuff. But it was always something I wanted to learn,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know how to get into it. And I kind of felt dumb. And I think a lot of people, when it comes to fandoms and stuff like that, like, how many people haven't like got into Game of Thrones because they feel dumb because it's like 2 years later, or 4 years later, or 5 years later, right? They're like, I want to, but I feel like I'm so far behind now, I won't get the same effect that everybody else got,
Oh, absolutely.
right? So I'm like, okay, how long have comic books been out, right? Since forever, like way before I was born. And I'm like, I want to know who these people are. I want to understand the art. I want to understand why they do the things they do. And I have kind of dipped into a fandom that I didn't know that I was going to be obsessive over. It's fun, and in a different way though. I'm not in the sense of like, I'm sorry, in this, specific series of this comic book, he didn't say it like this, so therefore, it's not like creepy weird like that. It's more like I am so interested in the art styles of these illustrators, why they do the things they do, where the storylines come from, their background, their history, put to rest some of the myths about some of these people, and bring to light a lot of the things that, you thought were true. Yeah, they're probably true. So it's a good show, and I really dig it. So Kamala was one of our favorite ones that I did. She was the first one that we decided to do more of a, because it's live on YouTube on Wednesdays, and we decided to do more of a, what's that show? Last Week Tonight kind of a feel.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pictures involved with that. That is a very heavily produced show, and let me just tell you, it takes years off my life trying to get one of those shows done. I mean, between the OBS and, getting it on time and having the guys go, and the funny thing is we do that right usually before Trivia Geeks, and literally we have to do this whole like big switch right before. I'm like, we got 5 minutes, Imran. Phil's like, I'm out, and he leaves, and we switch everything over so we can just kind of go, and which that's what you get, for being it. But so we did Kamala, and I was part of the reason I did her is a lot of people don't know, but Imran is actually an American Muslim Pakistani, and he has vitiligo. And so what is very interesting about this is he's Muslim, he's Pakistani, but he looks white. And he got this condition when he was a kid, and he slowly became white, I guess you could say. His sister looks completely Pakistani. He doesn't. They look like they came from like two different shells, right? But what was
Right.
great about him, like growing up, is like, he could go into all these places that were, speaking Pakistani and stuff like that. And he would go in there and they'd start speaking the language and talk about him a little bit. And they wouldn't realize that he could understand what they were saying. So he had like this little insight into a world that was really interesting. So I told him, I said, I heard about this Kamala Khan. He's like, oh my God, can we do her? Yes. She's the first time that they're bringing some of that culture to comic books, which I love that. I am a very diversified woman. I'm a liberal. I enjoy any of those types of things where you can bring in different cultures, different races, different types of people. I feel that that's what makes the world go around, basically. And I just love the fact that here's this young teenage girl who is actually changing the face of comics a little bit, and doesn't have to be this Superman. It doesn't have to be this white rich Batman. Here's this young teenage girl who's struggling through things just like my teenage girl is. I mean, it's about the same age roughly, and I was talking to my kid about it. And for those of you that don't know, my daughter does a show 8-Bit on our network, and it's all about video games. Shocking that a teenager would do a show about video games. But I was talking to her about it, and she's like, part of the reason like I never got into comics is because I can't relate, and she's just like, Kamala Khan is, regardless, my daughter's white and she's Pakistani. She's like, it doesn't matter. The fact is she's a woman. She's like, that's 50% of the population that they haven't really been tapping into very well. And she's like, I really like that. I think that's why Wonder Woman did so well at the movies this summer, because there's this whole group of people. I'm a wife now, but I've always been a girlfriend who's had boyfriends that are interested in comics. And I just, I don't know. I mean, David, if you can't sit down and share something with your wife or whatever, it's kind of like, I guess you go do that, and I guess I'll go do this. It's like you want to be able to share that with them. And if you don't understand it or understand the origins behind it, what's the point? So that's where this show really gets into, the background character itself, where it comes from, and the artists who make it. So it's a good show.
Awesome. Now, I imagine, have you read the comics, the Kamala Khan comics at all?
Yep.
The Miss Marvel?
Yep, I started reading them. I've started reading a bunch of stuff, so that's where it's they're kind of like all over the place right now. I've got my favorite one that I'm reading right now is what is it called? The Man That Fights Bears. Anything bears. I have to find this guy fights anything that's a bear with his shirt off. And I don't even know. I mean, it's the funniest stupid comic book ever, but you gotta love it. He'll fight a black bear, a grizzly bear, he'll fight the Chicago bears, he'll fight a polar bear, he'll fight your teddy bears stuck in your room if you can't get out of your closet. It's hilarious. So anyway, that's Shirtless Bear Man or whatever the heck it is. I'm looking for the comic book. Where did I put it? It's somewhere, but yeah, I started reading the comic, and I definitely dig it. I'm starting to try to be a little bit more diverse and not necessarily just dive into something like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not, I like Spider-Man. I like all these things, but I am definitely one of these people that like to go against the grain a little bit and find something different, something new, you're not going to see me do the most popular show. You're not. You're going to see me do something that's interesting to me. And a lot of my shows are like that. Westworld, BrokeBot Mountain is similar to that. It's something that interests me. It might not interest everybody else out there, but it interests me. So, you won't see me doing a true crime podcast just because it's popular. Although you might see me doing it because I like it, but you won't see me doing it because it's popular,
Right, exactly. Like that's the way I feel sometimes is when I see certain things pop up. I'm like, okay, I could totally talk about that, but let's talk about this. Like,
Right.
this thing that I'm digging and you're digging, and we're gonna talk about that. And it might not be the most popular thing that people want to listen to, but it's definitely something where maybe just by talking about it, more people will get interested in it.
Right, exactly. And I
And
think if you have a passion, David, I mean, people are going to kind of follow that passion and just go, oh, that's interesting. My whole thing is this. If you listen to one show, whatever it is that I'm doing or on our network, all I want from that is for you to be able to intelligently the next day go back to the water cooler and just say, I have an interesting fact or something that I remembered from that show. That's all I'm asking.
mhm.
That's all I want. And you can even do that with Trivia Geeks. And you haven't been on that show yet, but you're gonna be. You're gonna love that show. So what's great about that show is that it's a place for us podcasters, us comedians, all that to hang out and just let loose, right? And there's these crazy questions and these games that we play, and they're all true. And that's the real part of it. Like there's a lot of research that goes involved, finding these, very explicit type of questions. I will say they're rated R, so it's not for little ears. And we say that at the top of the hour, this is not for little ears, but it's a lot of fun. And it's meant to provoke laughter and fun and just have a good time. And we've had some pretty big people on there. So, I mean, we really enjoy doing that show as well. But, again, it's something you can go back to the water cooler and be like, did you know that blah, blah, blah? And it's absolutely true. So, I mean, that's kind of what I like doing that for.
Definitely. Yeah. And there's so much good stuff that's coming out as far as like, I mean, I love getting to listen to all these different podcasts. And then I tell my wife, I'm like, I heard about this today.
Mhm.
Or like I got her hooked on a different podcast a couple weeks ago where it was talking about like UFOs and Bigfoot and stuff like that. And so we just started listening to that together. And it's like, did you hear this? And she's like, yeah, I have a whole story about like a similar encounter. And then she'll tell me like her ghost story. And I'm like, you need to call in and leave that story so they can play it on their podcast.
Well, David, how did you get involved in podcasting? I know this is your show, but how'd you like stumble in on it?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I have 3 kids. They're currently 9 and twin 8-year-olds.
Okay.
And for the longest time I had no personal time. Like there's nothing I was doing for me. It's all for the kids or it's all for the family. Like that's what everything is around. So like I lost being able to like do tabletop role playing and I lost really playing video games and all sorts of stuff. And we had gotten to a point about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, where I said, I really want to just do something for myself. I don't know what it is. And on Black Friday, they had a deal, Amazon had deals throughout like that whole week. But on Black Friday, they had a Yeti microphone for like $80. And I said, I'm going to do a podcast by Donna. And I had no clue what I was going to do. I had no idea except that I had this microphone now that showed up. I'm like, I have no idea how to edit, no idea, whatever. So I bounced different ideas off of one of my best friends. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I said, I could just talk to people about what they like and what I like and record it.
Yeah.
And that's really how it is because, again, even with the kids at the ages that they are now, I can't go to go do like Dungeons and Dragons for 4 hours on a night. It's not possible. On the weekends, it's family time. So again, not really possible. And really this is the outlet, and I work from home,
Hmm.
and I don't have any outlet to go and meet people or go hang out with people or go talk to people about things that I like. So this is the best way for me to connect with people and, make a new social circle that might not be here in Orlando, but they're all around and, pretty much digging on the same stuff that I am.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. That's a great way. I think as parents, we all find the challenge of like how to still be us and to do that in order, to live our lives, but also to be good parents and not, just put them in front of the TV and do our own thing and stuff like that. For me, it's kind of weird how I even got started. It was a long time ago, back in the days of Warcraft when it first came out. And Donna and I are buddies. And a lot of people know that, a lot of people don't. But Donna's my girl, and we've been friends for 11, 12, however long Warcraft's been out. And I was the leader of the guild there, of course, because I have to take a leadership role. I'm shocked, right? You're shocked that I was the boss, right? And we played Warcraft, and I led raids and did all these types of things. And then my daughter got a little bit older, and I needed to spend more time and those types of things. I could do Warcraft at night, but I couldn't, and that was like my sneak time. She'd go to bed, and then I'd go play Warcraft for a little while, and then I would go to bed at like 1 a.m, kind of a thing. I barely sleep, get up, take her to school, all that kind of stuff. We all did that. And as she got older and Warcraft got a little bit out there, I was kind of like, we kind of all went a different direction, I guess you could say. What happened and now I work in mortgages, I work from home and things like that. So I had an opportunity when I moved to Illinois to kind of switch careers a little bit. And what had happened is I had been asked to do Trivia Geeks, and it kind of bit me a little bit. And I talked to Donna about some stuff, and then she kind of got bit by it, and we just kind of did this a little bit together, I guess you could say. And she came a little bit later than me, but it's nice to have friends that support things that you do, and vice versa. Which I love varmints. I can't do what they do. I'm a different person than they are, but I love animals, so it works out really well. But yeah, we just, it kind of based from this friendship that we had a long time ago, and I knew that we could start something cool, and I just wasn't sure what that was. And we're all, we're like this neighborhood of nerds, and I love how different we are, especially at Blazing Caribou. We're all different, but we're all the same. Like, we all care about each other. There's this, this ring of love, I guess you could say. We all want each other to do good. Obviously, when the hurricane hit Florida down there with you guys, we were so concerned that we just kind of jumped on board and, raised some money and things like that. It was concern for Paul and Phil and you and all the other people. And, it's turned into, similar to what you have, is this social outlet for me, because, working from home, as I don't think it's easy. A lot of people, I'm a very good self-starter and everything like that. But the first thing when my husband walks in the door is I'm like, hey, you want to go out? And he's like, what? I'm like, hey, you want to go out? And he's like, have you been stuck in the house today? I'm like, I've been stuck in the house all day. I'm like, I need to get out, and it's hard. What I try to do is I try to plan my podcast, during the day or on one day. So that way I'm writing and doing all those things during the day. So when they come home, I can still have my job and have my life and all those types of things. So.
Yeah, I think that's it's hard for people. They're like, "Oh, you're home all day." I'm like, "Yes, I am physically in the house, but I am doing work." Like,
Right.
I get questions sometimes like, "Well, how come this didn't get done or this didn't get done?" Well, I had a phone call or a conference call, or I'm trying to get something done. I have deadlines. I'm just trying to get stuff done, and then like I'll be like, "Can I let me run out to Publix? Like, let me just run out to the grocery store." Well, why do you need to go? Because like I want to get out of the house. I want to go somewhere.
We have a grocery store here that actually serves beer and wine, and I swear to God, it's like our date night sometimes. Like, he'll come home and he's exhausted, and I'll be like, you want to go on date night? He's like, are we going to Chinook's? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I just need to buy a pot roast and get a bottle of wine. I'm like, but what's cool is you can sit there and they have like a little restaurant in there and you can just sit there. You could buy anything from the grocery store and eat it right there. So, which is really nice. So it's like, it gives me my 10, 15 minutes of like, getting the heck out of the house and not feeling like I'm boxed in and everything like that. But yeah, it's not easy balancing, that. And then on top of it, obviously, if you stay home, you're probably in charge of the housework and shit like that too. So that's probably not fun. So I don't know how we do it, but we balance it all. And I run a company, so it's not just one. It's not just my own business, but also Blazing Caribou and also the household. And I'm in charge of the finances. And I'm nuts half the time. I'm like, I enjoy podcasting because what it does is it actually slows me down for an hour and gives me a chance to just kind of just go, okay, I'm good. I'm good. So, I tell you. And actually, another one of my passions, which a lot of people don't know, is actually how I met my husband, is through Hearthstone. That is a big, geeky, weird thing that we went through where James was we were in one of these Facebook groups together. And I mean, it doesn't matter which one, but we were in this like Facebook group together. I had met somebody in there and there was no face picture. Because he's not social media. You cannot find him on social media. Don't even try. But there was no face picture on Facebook. And he just used a moniker. It was like Silver Wisp or something like that. And that was his Facebook social interaction. He just went by that. So when I first met him, I didn't know him was a him. I just assumed that he was just like a chick that was maybe introverted and things like that. And it was all good. And so this game came out, Hearthstone, and I said, you know what? I'm like, would you like to play this game with me? And they were like, sure. So we played Hearthstone for probably like the first 3 to 4 months together, like religiously, with me, no idea that he was a he. I had no clue. And it was really funny. And I mean, I always tell him, I'm like, it's nothing mean to you. And I'm like, you're a sensitive, kind person. And I'm like, usually men are kind of, I don't know, after a while, they're like, hey, honey, you want to go into the back room kind of a thing. And he just wasn't like that. And I wasn't prepared for any of that. And so one day I finally said, hey, I've got this vent server that I used to use a long time ago for a while. I said, I still think I'm paying on it. You want to like talk and do this? Sure, he says. And so he comes out, I get in the thing and I see this person jump in and his name says James on it. And I'm like, I don't know if anybody knows about Ventrilo, but there used to be people popping into your servers all the time. It was so like annoying. Like, you'd get like these random people. And
oh yeah, you'd find those YouTube videos of people like doing soundboards all the time.
Right, and I'm like, oh, who's this guy? And so I said, hello? And you hear James go, well, hello, Kari. And I was like, I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, it's Silver Wisp. And I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, you're a chick. And he's like, no. And I'm like, how did we not ever talk about this in like 3 or 4 months? We just didn't. And from that point on, what was really cute is he was telling me that he's like, oh, I'd stalked you. He's like, I'd seen pictures of you. He's like, I had a crush on you. He's like, I wasn't going anywhere. And I'm like, really? And I'm like, I had nothing on you. I thought you were a chick. I had no idea. So we have this like little Hearthstone, and we love Hearthstone. It's kind of cute. Even in the wedding, it was our wedding was rustic with wood and stone and all these things. And since James is a stone carver, he went through it. It was very simple. He made all these little Hearthstones, these little pebbles, and put them on the tables as part of like the decor. It was really pretty and done, and not like. It wasn't a Hearthstone wedding per se. It was just a nod to this is how we met. So it was really cute. So he and I had this love-hate for Hearthstone because they keep changing it and we kind of go, but we play that game religiously. So that's a big fandom, I guess you could say, for us together.
What is it about Hearthstone? Is it more that it's like a strategy game, or is it just like something casual where you don't have to invest too much time in it? Like,
I
because
think
I've never played it.
well, I think what it is like I loved WoW. And I never realized that I would actually like a game like that. It was really neat getting into like a role playing type of a situation. And WoW is too much. It's too much. You don't have time for that. I was younger when I started it and I had a little bit of time, but as I got older, I can't stay up past 9:30. It just doesn't happen anymore for my body. And I couldn't make like the raids and stuff like that when they were doing these at like 2 a.m. And I was just like, oh my God. But I loved the characters and I loved the sense of humor behind it. And when they created Hearthstone, it was almost like they just took those characters and made them into cards. And so playing this game is very similar to I want to say it's a dumbed down version of Magic. And I had
Okay.
a long time ago played Magic. So, I mean, I picked up the concept really easily. I love card games. I'm like stupid with I love chess. I love card games. I love things like cribbage and euchre and pinochle and all of these different games. I've loved them since I was a kid. I used to play them with my grandmother. And so I think that's probably where that little obsession comes from. But I like thinking. And these types of games to me make you think. It's not just, just sitting down and just like, I don't know, clicking something. You're actually thinking, why am I putting this card down? What effect is this going to have? So it's a simplified chess version of something, I guess you could say. So what's nice is, like you said, you don't have to get invested. Like sometimes when you're being creative, and I've been sitting here all day writing, let's say, doing something or whatever. I literally need a mental break in the opposite direction where I need to either do math or something like that to just even myself out. And it's a good way to do that because then I'm thinking in a different way. I'm still kind of thinking creatively, but I'm thinking and it helps kind of even me out for the day. And like you said, you don't have to sit there for hours on end. And if you get interrupted, who cares? It's not like, I'm not going to be all mad like, oh my God, man, I was totally in a raid. You totally made our whole team wipe. Like it's nothing like
Right.
that. It's more like I get to start the game over again. So I think that's what I like about it. And it still has the whimsy of what WoW has and some of the funniness and, the goblins and gnomes and things. I do like card games. It's just, it's different now how things are. You don't have to carry around, 14 decks to make, something, have like 5 hours of, gameplay or something like that. It's just online, which is really, really cool and convenient. So that's fun.
Yeah, we have a geek bar / like video game lounge, and they have Hearthstone months. Like every month they have a
Like
Hearthstone
fireside
event.
chats. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So everyone brings in their laptop and whatever and plays. And again, haven't played the game, so I have no clue. But apparently they're very fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, and they can, and at the same time, it's like any game, they have to they have to tweak it here and there. I do like that there's some autonomy there. Like I don't have to like play with my friends if I don't want to. If I need to just be a little introverted and just be quiet, like I can do that on that game. Also, there's chatting if you're like friends with people, but you can't talk to the person you're playing against, which I really like because then it's not like they're taunting you and like, oh, you suck. Why are you even playing this game? Like you have no idea.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like that would drive me insane. Like I'm like, no, it's not why I come here. I come here to just kind of unwind for a good 15 minutes during my break. And I'm going to play this really quick and then I'm going to get back into what I was doing. So, I like games like that. Definitely. You know what I'm stuck on right now? Okay. So right now I am like hooked on the Switch. So we bought our daughter the Switch for her birthday and and this is kind of asinine. Like I don't spend that kind of money on birthdays. Like I don't. but we kind of felt guilty because we'd had this like big wedding, and this is her last year here, and she's going to college, next year. And we were kind of like,
Right.
yeah, one more fun thing for my kid, right? Like one fun thing. Christmas is coming. It won't be that, crazy. I said, but one more fun thing. Here comes the Switch. So she got the Switch, and she's been like obsessing over it. And it's been a long time since I played Mario Kart. And we got into her room the other day, and it's really cool to be able to sit down with your 17-year-old and laugh and joke around for like a few hours playing a game. That's why I love games, because you can do that, and so she got a Switch. So somebody had actually bought us a PS4 for our wedding, and we turned it in and we got a Switch. So now we have a Switch. So now we're all playing Mario Kart, and we're all waiting for the big Mario Odyssey to come out and
Right.
play games. That's all we do at this house. We play games. We talk on the internet, play games. We plan trips about when we can go play games. That kind of stuff. It's all good.
That's awesome. I bought my son a Switch, and then I was talking to my wife, and my wife is like, she doesn't really like video games to begin with.
Sure.
And they kind of started getting obsessed with, on their Kindles, they got obsessed with like Minecraft, and they got obsessed with another game called like Animal Jam. But we had bought the Switch because one of my sons had said, I want the Switch for Christmas. I was like, I snagged it when it was available.
Right.
Have Mario Kart. And then I told my wife a couple days ago, I said, I think I'm just going to sell it because they don't have time to play it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we took away their Kindles, we took away their Nintendo DSs because they did not do what they're supposed to do at school, and they haven't earned them back yet. It's been like 3 weeks now, almost 4 weeks, and I'm like, I don't think they're going to play the Switch. Like it's going to be a thing where they get it, and then it's just going to sit there, and I think I'll just take my money back for now.
Well, and I'll tell you what, I think what sucks about gaming systems is like it sometimes is really a hit or miss. We have an Xbox, and James has it basically to play with his nephews who are like 45 minutes away, and he's, really close with his nephews, and he can go online and just come home for a half hour and spend a little time with them. Well, that was 3 years ago. And what happened is they got older, and I don't think it's like hitting them yet, like that they're older, and I'm like, they got girlfriends, dude. Like they don't want to play video games with their creepy uncle. I'm like, it's just not how it's gonna be. I'm like, they don't, it's different now. And my thing with the Switch, and this is like my push for the Switch, it is very family orientated, and anybody can play it. Even your wife who doesn't like video games can play it, and you can get good at it, as opposed to something like, I feel like I wanted the PS4 for MLB because I really like that game, but I'm like, I don't need a whole system for one video game. To me, that's silly. And I said, it only brings James and I together. It doesn't bring James Reagan and I together, because she's just like, I don't give a crap about baseball, and I'm like, yeah, I hear you. But like this, to me, I feel that Nintendo is kind of, they're hitting the mark here. Now, whether it works in every family or not, but I feel like little kids can play this game, older people can play this game, women can play this game, grandparents can play these games. It brings the old idea of the sitting down on Sunday night playing the Hasbro type of a, game of life, Monopoly type of an idea. It turns it into that. And I think it's brilliant, to be honest with you. I'm like, I'm in. I'm like, because I can't play video games every single day. But, when I want to sit down and laugh with my daughter for a couple of hours on a Sunday, this is perfect. This is perfect. And now that she's going to college, see, I was already thinking ahead of how to, basically, I don't know if you've seen the Goldbergs, but I'm like, I'm not that mom, but I'm kind of like already getting into the feeling like I'm going to miss her. This is a good way that her and I can connect. She can just call me like, hey, I got an hour. You want to play, do you want to play? And be like, yeah, let's play while you're up there or whatever. So,
okay.
Yeah. So I'm, it's kind of it's kind of one of those things too where, she can cut loose, we can cut loose. And, it's, I don't know, like Mario Kart is great because again, you're not invested. It's one of those things you can walk away from after a little bit, but it's also a heck of a lot of fun to play, so I don't know. I'm always looking for games like that you don't have to have this exorbitant amount of time that you put into something, that you could play a little bit and get the enjoyment out of it and kind of move on. Big instant gratificationalist if you haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, I totally understand. I mean, I have a PlayStation 4, and I think I told somebody yesterday, almost all the games are still in their shrink wrap because we use it more for like Netflix or
Yep.
watching Blu-rays rather than actually gaming on it. Because all the games I like are like role-playing games where it's like, okay, I have to play for 2 hours before I get to like the next save point.
Right.
And I don't have that time. Like, I just don't
Right.
have that time anymore.
I mean, when I think of video games, and how old am I? I'm 42. Oh my God. You ever have that moment? Anyway, I'm 42
Every
years
day.
old. I know. I'm like, who am I? But when I think of video games, I remember the days that we'd all be huddled around the biggest TV ever in the living room that was also a piece of furniture. And we would all sit down kind of like, like a family, but our friends would be over kind of looking over our shoulders as we play the Atari. And, it would be like your turn and you would, try to get through the pitfall things or hit through the Frogger stuff or get through, all these different things. And then it was somebody else's turn and we kind of passed it along and it was fun like that, and that's what I remember. That's what I love about video games because that feeling wasn't there for a long time with me. These first person shooters, these different types. I'm not saying they're not good games. I would not argue with that. I think it's amazing you can do all this like virtual reality stuff. But I feel that what that does is it pigeonholes you and puts you into it kind of takes you out of being social with other people and makes you introverted a little bit. Like, I'm just going to play this, this Grand Theft Auto by myself, and I'm not a big fan of that. And it takes, like you said, I've known people that are like, oh, I'm playing, oh God, a Fallout. Like that was like big at one point, oh, I'm playing Fallout. And I'm like, oh yeah. They're like, yeah, I'm like, 82 hours in. I'm like, what? And I'm like, really? I just turned on Hearthstone. I'm about 15 minutes in and I'm like, I already got my pack, so it's all good. And I'm like, and I turned it off and now I'm having dinner with my family. So I'm always kind of constantly looking for those types of things, some way that I can have a little bit of fun, but at the same time, it doesn't take up all of my life. And I mean, because we all went through that obsessive phase where we were like playing video games way too much. I did it in my teens, and it was just like I played this way too much. And as an adult, your brain's like, "Don't do that again." You don't have friends when you do that. So, so it's like one of those things where it's just like I just wanted to. I like to find things that are more suitable to me. And then on top of that, how do we watch all this stuff on TV? How do we do this? How are our brains handling all of this stuff right now? I don't get it. Between having, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I've had a video game going on my computer. I've had Hearthstone going on my iPad. I was recording a podcast. I've had like all this multimedia going at one time. And I'm like, what am I doing with myself? My brain is about to explode. What am I doing? So.
Yeah, I can generally get away with like working as well as like listening to a TV show or kind of watching it. But there are times where it's just like, okay, it's just too much. Like too much going on. I got to focus on one.
I have a question. So, how do you deal with when your wife or you, like, let's say you want to watch Ozark, right?
Okay.
Like you're like, I want to watch this show. And your wife's like, yeah, I want to watch it too with you. So wait for me, kind of a thing. And then it's not as priority for her as it is for you. Meaning like it's maybe the 10th one that she wants to see, but this is the next one you want to see, right? Like you're on it. Like for me, it's Mindhunter, right?
Okay.
And I just watched it. I was just like, I'm terrible, but I was like, no, I'm like, you don't like this stuff. You yell at me for watching Law and Order, and I'm like, no, you're not gonna like this stuff. And I kind of like try to watch things before he says anything, because then I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, but I'll watch it again with you. And he's like, no, it's fine. I'll watch it when you're on your podcast or something.
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay. So I want to make the record known now. We're recording this on October 26th because this episode is going to come out after what the show I'm going to mention happens.
Okay.
So a friend of mine recommended I guess like a week or two after Stranger Things came out, but it hadn't blown up yet.
Right.
And they're like, "Oh, you need to watch Stranger Things." I was like, "Okay, cool. I'll watch it." And generally, when I watch shows that are for me, I watch them at night because I work at night as well. And I'll watch them after she's gone to bed, and I'll watch them on Netflix because I have two monitors. I have my work monitor, and I have my computer monitor basically for my personal computer. Mm-hmm. And so I watched Stranger Things, and I had made the comment after I finished the season. I was like, "Oh yeah, I watched the show Stranger Things," and she's like, "But I wanted to watch that show." Now she had made no indication of wanting to watch the show.
Right.
She'd heard about it at work, and I had binged it through probably 2 or 3 nights. I got through it.
Yep.
Now here's the thing that's coming up with on Friday, Stranger Things 2 comes out.
Right.
I want to watch it. I want to watch it all over the weekend. And I know that with having to wait for her, it might take a couple days or a couple weekends to get through it. And it's killing me. And I want to watch it ahead of time, and just be like, "Oh yeah, I haven't watched it yet." But the problem is that we have the same obviously, when we pull up Netflix, they'll be like, "Oh, start from beginning," and that's going to be the issue. But generally, I will watch the shows that I want to watch at nighttime while she's asleep, or during the day while I'm working here and she's at work. And then if it comes up that she wants to watch it, I'll try to be like, "Oh yeah, I haven't watched it yet," or I'll be like, "Yeah, I've watched some of it, but not all of it."
Mm-hmm.
But she does have her own shows. She'll watch Outlander,
Mm-hmm.
or she'll watch there's another, or The Good Doctor that just came on, so she'll watch that
too. Yeah.
And we have our shows that we watch together, Tuesdays This Is Us and Wednesdays Survivor, and that's pretty much it for us at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's some shows I've tried to get her into, and she doesn't have the she works as a nurse, so by the time she gets home, she just wants something that she doesn't have to pay attention to.
Right.
So she's not into Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's my Law and Order. That's the reason why I watch. Everybody makes fun of me, but I'm like, you don't have to pay attention to that show. Somebody got raped, somebody died, somebody's going to jail. It's all good.
Exactly.
You can turn it in at any point, but it just kind of tunes you out, and I don't care at this point. It just kind of sounds very monotonous in the background, especially if you're doing all this stuff all day and your brain's just on overload. It's a good show. Yep. kind of do. And after listening to BrokeBot Mountain, how big of a joke it is, how I'm always bringing that show back somehow to any movie that we watch. And see, that's always been my problem with James, because so James is a big movie nerd, and he's also hey, wait for me, don't watch that show kind of a thing. And unless I pretend I didn't hear it, I do wait for him. And what makes it hard is he's like, "So what's the BrokeBot Mountain schedule?" And I'm like, "Oh no." And I'm like, "Oh, well," and now understand, a lot of these movies, again, this show is set up to originally was supposed to be a Westworld fan cast. And what happened is we just liked each other so much, we had to keep going. And we turn it into a sci-fi Western AI type of a podcast. Again, very niche type of a thing. But these are all the movies that I missed growing up. And having a child, being single for so long, I never got to go to movies. So it's funny because Phil's like, "How did you not see Blade Runner? Or how did you not see these movies?" And I'm like, "I just didn't." Okay.
Right. Exactly.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, maybe because it interested me more as a comedian to go watch a comedy than it did a sci-fi. I didn't realize that I was going to like this stuff. And I'm like, that's the whole point of why I watch it now. But what happened is that kind of turned into that. And so we started, we wrote down about 25 shows that we were going to do, and we keep that going. We kind of figure out what we're going to do, which is good because it kind of keeps you on a schedule that way too.
Mm-hmm.
And James asked for the list, and I'm like, oh no. I'm like, oh, well, we're watching this. Well, when you sit down to watch Blade Runner, I'm sitting down with you. And I'm like, you're at work when I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it at like 8 o'clock in the morning, right? I'm like, I'm going to write the show up at like 10:30. I'm like, we're going to do the show at 1. I'm like, that's just how we work, and I'm like, okay, I'll wait for you. And it killed me. And a lot of times too, speaking of podcasting, so when we were watching Westworld, obviously that came out weekly. So that was a good one to watch together. There was this point, and I love James to death, but there was this point where I had to kind of keep rewatching the shows to make them make more sense to me. Like, I probably have seen Westworld 4 times each episode right now. So, and I'll guarantee you I'll watch it one more time before the next season comes out. So I have a pretty darn good understanding of what we've broken down in that show. And for a person that watches it one time through, I believe it's very confusing. It is. I mean, it's one of those shows you either like it or you hate it. And
absolutely.
And I know that. But it's really hard being next to the one you love, and they're like, I don't know if I like this. I'm like, shut up. I'm doing a whole podcast on it. Shut up, shut up, shut up. I am like, I get it. So like, what you would get from me a lot in those shows is like, I would listen to him and I would hear his gripes, I guess you could say, in a good way. And so I could kind of speak a little bit on both sides. So it didn't sound like, I was just like this huge fangirl fanning out on it, but there were definitely some plot holes and things like that I was trying to get him over. I don't know what this is about people that if they're not given the whole story and an explanation, that they just don't want to hold on. Like, I love the suspense of waiting for the next season. Like, what's going to happen here? But it's like, for Westworld, it wasn't until like maybe the second to last episode where they started to kind of explain a little bit more. And then, but at the same time, it still left 1,000 questions,
Oh,
And
yeah.
some people, some people don't like that. Some people like, well, I want all my questions answered right now. And I'm like, well, then why are you watching it? Like, if that's the case, just go watch like a documentary. And if you don't get all the information you want, just go Wikipedia it and figure out the rest of the information. Because like, this is a story. It should be, there should be like some cliffhangers and things like that, and then I guess people talk about the fact that the internet destroys fandoms. What do you think about that? That the internet destroys fandoms? Like, because people, like on Game of Thrones, how they predict all these things that could possibly happen and they write them all down. They put them in Reddit. People start discussing them. And then the show comes out and like, see, we said that Daenerys and Jon Snow would get together. We knew it, Do you feel that it ruins it or makes it better or what?
Well, as we're close to the same age, within a few years of each other. So we were around for like the advent of basically the internet and AOL and Prodigy and all that stuff.
Yep.
I feel that it was around regardless. It's just now it's so widespread and people can really hide behind monitors at times and get really whether it's like obsessive or, I'm right and you're wrong and this is how it's going to be type thing. I don't think it destroys fandoms. I think it just really depends on where you're going for your information or who you're talking with. Like, I got into Westworld because one of my friends recommended it and I waited. I didn't want to watch it like every week. I waited until it was all out and then I binged it. And I sent messages like after each episode. I was like, well, here's my thoughts on this. But I went in without any spoilers. But I think that some of the stuff, like in the Game of Thrones books, honestly, some of them have been out for 15, 20 years before
Yeah.
the TV show was even made. So people already had those theories, regardless of people commenting on like whatever Reddit or whatnot of, oh, like this is going to how it's going to play out or whatever. I think it's just I think it's more like the internet's become more of a microscope plus a megaphone.
Yes.
So like, and I think when I was younger, like I was all into, okay, I need the breakdown of the movie trailer. Like when Lord of the Rings movie trailer came out, like I was one of those people that watched it obsessively, went to the website for like each little, oh, let's look in the background for stuff. And now like the newest Star Wars trailer came out. I was like, I don't care, whatever. I'll see it in the movie theater.
Right. Yeah, I hid myself from that one because I heard that there's just so much. It kind of gives a lot of the story away. If you don't want to do that, just don't. So I think it's a choice, really, at this point. Like, you know, what we want to be spoiled with and what we don't. Sometimes I do not mind having, you know, somebody else, you know, have a theory about something because it just makes it more interesting to me. But I mean, to me, I think there's always going to be those people that are going to quote unquote spoil it, I guess you could say. But I don't know, spoilers don't bother me. It's just, the thing is, I think as I've gotten older, like I don't remember half the things I say anyway. You could tell me a spoiler right now in 10 minutes. I'm not even going to like, well, who are you? Like, I'm not even going to remember. Like, fine. I don't care. I don't remember that stuff. So, I mean, you know, especially like with Game of Thrones and things like that, people are throwing around all these ideas. And it's funny because one of the biggest people, James, is such a big deal about not getting spoilers. We're sitting in the middle of watching Game of Thrones, and all he does is come up with these theories the whole show. I mean, he's like interrupting, and he's like, well, you know what's going to happen? This big dragon's probably going to tear that thing down, and this is going to happen, and that's going to happen. I'm going, really? And I'm like, Mr. I hate spoilers. Don't spoil this for me. You're just coming up with all these different theories. Again, I don't care, because I'm like, it's just a conversation. And isn't that the point, is to have these interesting conversations with people on what could and might happen or might not. And that's where we got weird on Westworld. So the best part about that show, which I absolutely adore. So Phil and I kept thinking about doing sketching comedy. I've been bugging him forever to do that show. And Westworld comes out. We watched 2 episodes, and I'm like screaming on the internet, this show is crazy. Like, and you found that me, Phil, and David Luzader, we were all in the same circles, just babbling about it on all these, like, on our Facebook pages, on our threads, right? And so I said to him in Slack, I said, yeah, so how about let's do a Westworld podcast? And they're like, well, how are we going to get that done? We're going to have to watch all these. And I'm like, 3 days. It took me 3 days to start the podcast, have the artwork done, and have it up and running and run our first show in 3 days. And we got it.
That's awesome.
And so we started that show like, da, 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 and I'm like, this is how it's going to be. I have no idea, kind of a thing. And we started running with it from that point on. We started, you know, really getting into it more and more. And we found our groove probably, I would say our 30th show in, and it was way past Westworld at that point that we kind of found our groove, and we were just kind of like, okay, now we know what to do on the show. But we were literally, all 3 of us, just kind of thrown into it. And these guys jumped on board because they just needed a place to talk about it, you know. It was such a crazy show. You need like what's even happening, you know, kind of a thing. But at the same time, we liked each other so much. I'm like, well, we could do this with other movies. I'm like, you guys know I haven't seen like sci-fi movies, right? And they're like, wait, what? It was really funny. Like, how could you not have seen these movies? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, maybe because I didn't date growing up like nerdy guys, and that's not a put down in any way. I always dated like the funny guy. So our dates consisted of like going to comedy shows and, you know, like dinners and things like that, and movies that were, you know, like, I can't even think off the top of my head, but just, you know, comedy movies as opposed to sci-fi movies. That's all. It's just how my life was. It wasn't like I was like some weirdo. I just didn't see them. And the first time I think I realized, though, that I actually would like that is when I saw The Fifth Element. And I was like, wow, this is kind of neat. This is like totally different. The way that people are thinking is like crazy. And I mean, and don't get me wrong, I had seen Star Wars and stuff, and obviously I love those and things like that. But I don't know. It was really weird. There were just things about sci-fi that I just wasn't interested in until now. And I think it's kind of cool now that I'm kind of getting into it and trying to figure out like what's the big deal. And it's you know you know what the funny part is that aha moment when you hear a line that's recited in a movie that you've been hearing all your life, and you're like, oh, that's where that comes from. And
Yes,
you're
yes.
like, oh, thank God. Thank God for putting that into my brain now. Thank you. I don't feel so dumb. But yeah, but I mean, Phil and Dave, they love to razz me. The best part is I hate Fury Road, and I get so many messages from that, and I've gotten a bunch of emails, and it's just they're like, how can you hate Fury Road? I'm like, you just hate it. I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm going in green. I'm giving you my opinion. I don't like it. I'm like, I just don't like it, But it's an interesting dynamic because David's younger than Phil and I. He's in his 30s, and Phil and I are the exact same age. So Phil has gone through seeing all of these movies basically when they came out or very close to when they came out. And I've never seen them. So he's got like part of it is like his childhood, and I love just destroying his childhood. I'm like, this is a stupid movie, Phil. And he's like, no, it's not. I'm like, no, it's stupid. I'm like, there's no plot here. What is this? And then he tries to like justify it. I'm like, la 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 la. I'm not listening to your justification. Sorry, dude. No, it's stupid. Like, I remember watching Alien, and I was kind of freaked out, like it was going to be all scary, because that's part of the reason I didn't watch it. I don't like scary movies. And I'm like, fine. He's like, you got to watch Alien because Alien Covenant's coming out. We're going to cover that on the show. And I'm like, fine. So I go and watch it, and I'm like, it was stupid. And he's like, no, don't use those words on Alien. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I wasn't scared. I'm like, it was kind of childish. She goes, okay, but put yourself back in the day and the time that this movie came out. I'm like, And I'm like, I don't want to. I'm like, no. I'm like, it didn't hold up. And that's my opinion from now. So if you're going to sit down with your kids to watch this movie, yeah, it would probably be okay for them because they haven't been, exposed to all the other sci-fi cool stuff yet in the world.
Yep.
But if you're 42 years old and you're sitting down for the first time, it looks like a cheeseball show. And I was just like, it's just not going to work for me. So he's just like, oh, Kari, he's like, you're killing me. And I'm like, I know, it's all good. So now what are you going to do? This is my life. This is how I do things. So.
Yeah, my wife, she grew up in a household where they didn't really have TV until like the mid 90s, and they weren't allowed to watch certain things. So I'll bring up shows to my wife or movies to my wife. She's like, I never saw it, or I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'll try to like get her into them. And it's the same thing. She either is like, oh, okay, that's cool, or like she'll hate it. And it's like, how can you it's like, how can you hate stuff from my childhood or what I grew up on? How can you hate
Fresh Prince from Bel-Air, man? I was born and raised. Like, why would I watch that show? I don't know, but you need to. I know. I do like the fact that James does get all of my references. So, I mean, he was obviously a TV watcher and movie watcher. I just don't always get his sci-fi references, but I'm slowly getting them, which is good. I am catching up, which is nice. So I'm not completely 100% in the dark, but yeah, he usually gets my, my obscure. I'd said something about Minnie Pearl when we were in Tennessee, and man, he caught it, and I was just like, man, you got that joke? I'm like, I don't know what's worse, that you got that joke or that I fucking made that joke. I'm like, that's horrible. Minnie Pearl, oh my god. So
now, Kari, for those of the people listening who don't know, where are like some of the best places to find your shows besides like obviously like going on the internet and looking them up?
The best place is just to go straight to our website at blazingcariboustudios.com, and it's caribou with a C. You can find Varmints and Sketching Comedy and Trivia Geeks and 8-Bit and See Here's the Thing. We're actually adding 2 new shows, and I'm not going to tell you what those are yet, but, you know, be on the lookout for those. We got 2 new shows coming onto the network, which I am pretty darn excited about. And we're kind of growing that every day as well. And yeah, we're just trying to get the content out there that people are asking for too, you know, and also the things that, you know, people are talking about stuff and we need a place for them. And that's what my network provides. And it also provides a place, a strong place to be safe. It's a safe spot. And that's what I like about our network. There's no, you know, whether you're a woman or a man or, you know, black, gay, Pakistani, you know, right wing, left wing, it doesn't matter. You can belong on our network and you can be a part of our team. So I really enjoy having this group of nice people that I work with. I absolutely adore all of them. They are like my besties, I guess you could say at this point, which is odd in today's day and age that like some of these people you don't even get to meet until later down the road, but they are my best friends. They are the people that I care about and work with every day. So yeah, go to blazingcariboustudios.com. You can catch us on Twitter at blazingcariboustudios.com and basically, or at Blazing Caribou, sorry. And on Facebook, you can catch us on Blazing Caribou as well. But what's cool about that is you can get all of our shows from there. So you can start to kind of flip around and see what you like and what you're into at that point.
Definitely. And everyone at Blazing Caribou is really cool. I mean, I think I've talked to pretty much everybody, either like through Facebook or on Twitter or listen to the shows. And it's just so much good stuff is out there from Blazing Caribou. And Kari, it's been a pleasure to have you on for today.
Oh, well, thank you. I've had a lot of fun. Thanks for hearing me ramble on as usual. That's what they usually say. They're like, oh, Kari's going to ramble on one of her podcasts. So thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.